And that's why I prefer funds over individual stocks, because the funds will hold, within that fund, you're holding, potentially hundreds of stocks, and you're helping to diversify yourself just in case one stock goes down.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searens, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
Glad to have you back on Your Life, Your Money, the podcast that's helping you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. I am Ben George. He is Scott Searens, President and Financial Advisor at Searens Financial Group. Scott, welcome in. How's it going?
Ben, things are well. Thanks again for another great conversation, and looking forward to this one.
Yeah, word on the street is you got a little golf trip coming up.
Little golf trip coming up, heading up to Wisconsin. There's 8 of us total, and we've got 2 full days of golf planned, so it's going to be a good time.
That will be a lot of fun. Take advantage of this beautiful fall weather before it's gone for good, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun. Hey, I wanted to kick off the podcast. So we got a great conversation coming up about spotting red flags, and we're going to try to do a lot towards helping people identify some problem areas in their finances. But I want to start off the show. We like to kind of throw out a quote to begin things, kind of get us eased into the conversation. This one today comes from Peter Lynch. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Know what you own and know why you own it.
Pretty good quote, right? I'd say it actually ties in pretty well to spotting the red flag in finances. You know, an analogy that I like to use in a lot of the workshops that we host is I show a picture of a kitchen junk drawer, right? Everybody's got one of those at home, that drawer that kind of collects everything over time. You've got that lost spoon in there, right? A tape measure, calculator, who knows what's sitting in there, right?
Yep.
And I use that analogy, and I think it ties into what Peter's saying here, right? Know what you own and why you own it. I think over time, it seems like, people I've found start to just collect different things. Maybe it's old 401ks, or that maybe they've bought different policies or annuities or different investments or stocks or bonds. And, as time goes by, yes, you may know what you own, but why is it that you own that? And while it might have been good or useful or part of your plan while you got it, is it still right for you as you venture into new stages of life? And, I'll say this as well. I like to use the phrase emotion versus logic. And I find that sometimes people can become so emotionally tied to these things that they've maybe accumulated over time versus doing what's logically right for them and in their best interest. So what is the purpose of what you own? Does it still fit into your plan? If it has a purpose, great, it's part of your plan. If there's no purpose, well, then maybe it's time to reevaluate and understand how that needs to switch or what it needs to become, so that way it can help you in your future plan.
I love it. And I think we are all guilty of looking into our accounts at some point and saying, why exactly did I buy this again? Why do I have this in here? So that's a good way to kind of kick off the show. Well, look, if you haven't joined us before, we do appreciate you being here on Your Life, Your Money. We put everything up online, lifemoneyshow.com. This podcast, Scott has videos he does as well. There's a lot of great information there. It kind of serves as like a one-stop shop for all of your educational needs when it comes to financial planning. So please visit that when you get a chance, lifemoneyshow.com. And please subscribe to the show as well. We'd appreciate your support there, and you won't miss a single show. We got new episodes every week, some with me, some Scott's knocking out on his own, doing a great job with that. So we do appreciate you, though, either way, for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. All right, Scott, spotting red flags in your finances. I'm going to basically kind of present things in the form of a question here, and then you can kind of help us understand, based on maybe how we answer the question, whether or not there could be a red flag in our finances. So let's start off with this one. Would you say at the end of the year you have a surplus, meaning you have taken into income minus expenses, taking that into account? Do you end up the year with a surplus? Asking this question, what kind of answer are you looking for?
Well, a lot of times, unfortunately, and here's the red flag, a lot of times I hear people say, I don't know. And that can actually go two directions, because there's people that live within their means. And when they say, I don't know, it's because they just know that at the end of the year, they're saving money. So I guess their answer, if I just put that technical pressure on them, they'd say, yes, I've got a surplus at the end of each year. There's a lot of people that say, I don't know. And what it really means is that they are spending more than they're taking in. Right. And now this would be a lot of, I'll call it pre-retirement kind of discussion, but I'll explain how it really goes into to help you plan and think around retirement. But I guess the red flag here is if at the end of each year there's not a surplus, it means that you've got more going out than you have coming in, which means then you're probably going into debt. Or you're digging into your savings, and you're not saving up for your retirement. You're not saving up for your future. You're not investing in your future. So the first thing to really understand here is, what is your cash flow? What's coming in minus what's going out? Is there a surplus? Maybe that surplus was going into your 401k. That's great. But either way, you want to have a surplus at the end of each and every year. Like I mentioned, if you're not sure how to manage expenses and how to manage cash flow, here's what it could really turn into. It could turn into a struggle, to be able to save and have enough for your retirement. It could make it a struggle, I guess, to achieve financial independence in retirement. And then, it could make it a struggle for you in retirement when using your retirement savings to live off of, because you might already just have this, I'll say, mindset that you can go and spend how much you want whenever you want. A lot of my clients, I guess to say, are savers, so they know at the end of each and every year they have a surplus and their account values show it, right? What they've saved up for retirement shows it, and they really know how to live within their means. So if that question comes across and you're like, I don't know, but probably not, that would really be a red flag that you want to get in front of, and you want to start managing to turn things around and be on the right track wherever you're at today, as well as on the right track for your future.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Yeah, I don't know that I'd be able to answer that necessarily. I think I've got a surplus, Scott, but I probably should do a better job of tracking it. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Number 2 on our list, are you maximizing the potential of your company-sponsored retirement plan? And I got a pretty good idea of, depending on how you answer this, whether or not that's a red flag.
Yeah, so, if somebody is saying no here, and I guess maybe this will go a little bit deeper, Ben, right? When it says, are you maximizing the potential of your company-sponsored retirement plan? I think the first thing that comes to mind is, are you getting or maximizing the potential of your company match, right? A lot of companies, if you contribute to your 401k, 403b, if you contribute to your retirement plan, your company will also make a contribution for you. A lot of people, and again, just kind of quotes around this, right, would call this free money. And, sometimes when I ask people, they're not sure. And that's a red flag to me, because this is a real good opportunity, meaning that if you're going to take out of your paycheck and contribute, and I'm just making up numbers here, 6%, your company might match 50% up to that 6%. They might match 100% up to that 6%. You're putting in 6%. They're going to put in a portion based upon whatever, their details are in that specific plan. So number one, I would say, is going to, again, go to your company plan, take a look. What's that match? Make sure you're at least maximizing that match with the company. Then after that, I'll say next question kind of under this one is, for those that have the ability to, save, are you maximizing your plan? And a lot of people would say, yeah, I'm doing that. I'm putting in X percent. But, this podcast is actually, episodes coming right at a good time, end of the year planning. A lot of times you might think that you're putting in the full amount, but the company might actually be, I'll call it, limiting you, because they don't want you to go over. And what you have to do as part of your last paychecks for that year is go in and tell the company, hey, I want to make sure I get the maximum amount that I can into my 401k. And they'll have to kind of work with those last few paychecks to do so. But they're not going to do it automatically for you. And so that's an important one to look at. And then, does your company offer a Roth 401k? And I know we've had a lot of conversations about tax diversification, tax planning. A lot of times I'll ask that question and I'll kind of get some blank stares. Now, that Roth 401k, the way that that's different is you're going to pay tax today, but it grows tax-free, and then all of the withdrawals that you make in the future will come out to you tax-free. We're not here today in today's episode, Ben, to determine if that's a good fit for somebody or not. But I think do you know the answer to that question? If the answer is no, first we want you to go check with your plan and then sit down with somebody that can help you understand which account is the best account for you to put your money into.
Yeah, some very good things to think about with the company's sponsored retirement plan. And speaking of retirement accounts, our next question to help you spot the red flags in your finances is, are you contributing only to a traditional 401k or an IRA?
Here's a good one. And the red flag here really comes from a tax standpoint. So if the answer is yes, I'm just putting all of my money into my 401k, or I'm putting all of my money into my 401k and traditional IRA, you could have a potential red flag from a tax standpoint in your future. There's two issues with this. One is the tax diversification, right? So if all of the money is going into just those two types of accounts, the red flag is that we don't have any sort of tax diversification. Remember, when you put your money into the traditional 401k, traditional IRA, you get a tax deduction for the year that you put the money in. All of that money grows tax deferred, but here's kind of the gotcha, I guess, is that when you take all of that money out in your future, you're going to have to pay tax on it. People think, oh, well, hey, Ben, my taxes will be lower in retirement. I'm no longer working at my company, and so I don't have my company paycheck coming in, so my taxes will probably be lower in retirement.
Right.
Depending on how much you save into these buckets, your taxable income could be potentially the same or actually higher in your retirement. And the reason being is because of the government's, I'll call it, forced mandatory distributions from these accounts. So right now at age 72, the government's going to look at you and say, hey, you got to start taking money out of those accounts. And at age 72, it's, the percentage amount that you have to take out might be a little bit lower, but then basically the amount that you have to take out grows over time. So if you're getting growth in these accounts, plus the required distribution, the mandatory amount that you have to take out, if that percentage grows over time, next thing you know, in your 80s or 90s, you could be taking so much out that your taxable income in your future is higher than where it's at today. Quick story for you. I recently sat down with a client. We did a tax projection for them. They unfortunately had saved all of their money into just those accounts. And by doing the tax projection, again, just a projection, we don't know what future returns holds, etc. But we can just use some values to make some projections. They would have taxable income in their 70s and 80s that was way higher than where it's at today. So basically, they were causing them, by contributing the way that they're causing themselves more taxes in their future, and actually at a potential higher bracket in their future than where they're at today. So once we found that and spotted that, we switched around where they're starting to save their income and put tax diversification in as part of their plan. So that's issue number one, tax diversification and where your taxes could be at in the future versus today. The other potential thing to think about is the traditional 401k, the IRA. You're not able to, get at that money, withdraw that money without a penalty. Now there's special circumstances and cases for hardships, but for the most part, you can't withdraw that money until age 59 and a half without a penalty. So if it's part of your goals to retire early or retire before age 59 and a half, it might be also very beneficial to you to save into an after-tax account, a brokerage account, or the Roth account. Roth, technically, you can't touch the gains till 59 and a half. You would be able to touch your base. But that's the other thing. So if you're planning to retire early, then you really need to start and think and plan in advance where you're putting your money.
All right. Number of things to be thinking about there with your traditional 401k, IRA investments. You mentioned diversification a little bit. Let's talk about diversification a little bit more. How would you answer this question? Can you name a stock that makes up more than 10% of your portfolio?
So if your answer is yes to this one, that would be a red flag to me.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about your portfolio and you said, "Boy, I bought, a bunch of Apple," or maybe you just bought a bunch of your company stock, or maybe you have stock options and you own a bunch of your company stock, and you're just thinking from a general perspective, "Boy, this probably makes up a significant portion of my portfolio," and I just kind of put 10% in there. That's kind of our guideline, is you don't want to have more, one stock. Now, again, funds can hold hundreds of stocks, but you wouldn't want to have one individual stock position making up more than 10% of your portfolio. It's starting to get too many eggs in one basket. Let me just give you an analogy here and kind of play along with me here. So if we were to have two elevators side by side, and say you were able to see the elevator shaft, and you looked at one elevator number one, and it had one string holding it up.
Okay.
And you looked at elevator number two, and it's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of strings holding it up. Which one are you going to get in?
I'm going to get in the second one.
The second one, right?
Yep.
There you go. That's diversification. Elevator one would be, hey, I've just got all of my money in one stock. And if that string breaks, there goes the elevator. Elevator two, you've got your money scattered throughout all of those strings holding up the elevator. So if one of the strings breaks, well, now you've got the other hundreds of strings holding up your elevator. And that's why I prefer funds over individual stocks, because the funds will hold, within that fund, you're holding, potentially hundreds of stocks, and you're helping to diversify yourself just in case one stock goes down. And so I think that's, hopefully that analogy helps folks really think about it of, hey, where am I at? How much weight am I putting on one of those strings of my elevator? And the other thing just to think about too, I mentioned it earlier, emotion versus logic. I find a lot of times, again, we can become emotionally tied to something, and we think that, if I sell this, I'm going to miss out on the gains of that potential one stock. But remember, you can always sell the stock and then put it into a more diversified fund where you could still potentially get gains over time, right? So we kind of become emotionally tied to things where we have this fear that if we sell it, we're going to miss out. But just remember, you could sell it and just reinvest it, but reinvest it where you're going to own, way more stocks than just that one. So hopefully that helps, but I think it's good to look at your portfolio. Make sure you don't have too much just, riding on one stock.
Yeah, that elevator analogy really helps you kind of understand why it's important to have multiple investments there to kind of help keep you stable. All right. How about this next question, number 5 on our list here? How much income will you need to maintain your lifestyle to achieve financial independence?
And if the answer to this one is, I really don't know, or have not a clue, that's a red flag to me, because retirement is all about cash flow. So when you understand how much you need to maintain, I call it financial independence, right? Maintain your lifestyle on a monthly or an annual basis, knowing that number starts to tell you a lot of things. It tells you how much you need to be able to save to achieve financial independence or achieve retirement. It's going to tell you when you can achieve that goal. And then it's also going to help you understand how much risk and reward that you need. I'll say risk reward, but how much growth or safety that you need in your portfolio to also help you get to that goal. And so without understanding or having a rough estimate of that number, what I find is that people then are just constantly wondering, can I retire at age 62? Can I retire at age 64? Can I, they're going to constantly guess. But if you have that number, now all of a sudden you're starting to, put together the details to a plan. Think about this. Ben, if I asked you, how long does it take you to, in perfect conditions, each and every day, how long does it take you to drive to work?
For me, I'm very fortunate. It takes me about 6 minutes.
So 6 minutes, right? So once I give you that destination, we know exactly what that time is, right? So that destination was work, and we understand that, hey, let's look at that as your expenses, right? That destination is how much do you need each and every month to live? And I said perfect conditions. Well, you knew then that it would take 6 minutes, meaning, hey, we know then how long it would maybe take for somebody to achieve that based on perfect conditions. And then we could say, oh, okay, well, if there's rain, or hey, I need to stop for gas, or all of these different things that could impact your plan. Same thing like driving to work. Well, if you knew that you're going to stop for gas, stop for something at the gas station, okay, hey, it's probably going to take me 10 or 15 minutes. But if I drive a little bit faster, then I could probably reduce that back down again to 12, right? So it's putting all those factors together that really helps people understand when they can achieve their financial independence, meaning their, trip to work.
Gotcha. Okay. Next up, what if someone asked you to describe your financial and your retirement plan? Could you do it? I'm guessing, Scott, you want to have a little bit of understanding of where you're headed here, huh?
Yeah. So I think, if we were to ask, somebody on the street to say, hey, if you could describe your financial plan, if you could describe your retirement plan, how would you describe it? And, if you're not able to answer that question, then that would maybe be a red flag to me, meaning that you might not have a plan in place. So some of the things that you should or would want to be able to answer is, how much do you need to save to hit your retirement goal, meaning your retirement date, or the financial independence number that we were just talking about? Would you be able to answer the question of when you would be able to achieve financial independence by? Can you answer if you're in retirement, can you answer the question of how much income you can consistently take from your portfolio without running out of money? Can you tell me how much of your portfolio is in growth, and then how much you have on the safe side of the portfolio, and why it is that way? And, the last thing is, I'll call it taxes. Taxes are pretty complicated, and I get that. But at the end of the day, would you say that, you have tax strategies and a tax plan in place, or is somebody helping you achieve that each and every year? And if you're able to say yes to all of those questions, great. I think then it's not a red flag. It's saying you're probably on track to do what you need to do for your life. But if your answer is, I don't know, to some or a lot of those questions, then I think it's, an important time to sit down and start checking the box yes on those questions, and find, either if you're doing it yourself, got to sit down, take the time, do the research, get the answer to the questions, or find the right person to be able to help you out.
All right. We have one more I want to go through, and that's, how often do you meet with your financial advisor? I'm curious in your answer here, Scott, what the red flag will be.
So I think the red flag, and before I even talk about that, I just want people to think about one thing, is how often do you meet with your doctor or your dentist, and why do you go in, right? You not only just go in when you have a problem, you go in for routine meetings and checkups, even if you're healthy. And so the red flag on the financial advisor question to me would be, if you're never meeting with them, to me, that's a red flag. Or if you're getting spotty or just very random meetings that don't have any sort of structure to them, that would be a red flag as well. Or if you're getting random calls to, hey, here's a new hot stock that we should buy, or here's something that we think's got great trajectory to it, and you should really buy this fund or buy that stock. To me, that's really a red flag as well. I'll share our approach, and then that way people can kind of, use that to determine what's a good fit for them. But we take a very structured approach, meaning at the beginning of each year, we're having our strategy sessions to make sure that our clients are always on track for their needs, whether it's how much do they need to save for retirement, if they're in retirement, how much income can they continuously take out. We're reviewing their investment portfolios, making sure that they continuously align with not only economic conditions, but with what the client needs. We're talking about healthcare planning, estate planning, and review. And then at the end of each year, what we have is our year-end planning and tax strategy meeting, helping put our clients in the best position possible by the end of each year from a tax and planning standpoint. Because there's a lot of things that need to take place by December 31st from a tax standpoint that you really have to be aware of and put those things in place so that you hit those 12/31 deadlines. But also just doing that tax planning, tax forecasting to say, okay, what do we need to do this year based upon what direction a client might be heading from a tax standpoint. So I feel it's a very structured approach, beginning of the year, end of the year, and then always, of course, being open to clients' questions and discussions any point in time throughout the year, just to make sure that they always stay on the right track.
Well, very good stuff. These are just some of the questions to maybe be asking and seeing how you answer to determine whether or not there are some red flags in your finances. And if you think there maybe are some red flags or this conversation raised some red flags, please don't hesitate to call Scott. You can do so 847-235-6989, or you can visit the website lifemoneyshow.com. We'll put this podcast there. There's other resources you'll find there as well. Scott, we got time for one mailbag question if you want to try to tackle that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
All right. This one came in from Katrina. She writes in, my husband isn't inclined to do any retirement planning because he says he'll just keep working. Is this mindset okay? I guess I'm worried about what happens if he can't keep working even if he wants to.
Boy, I think, Katrina here brings up a really good point, right? Sounds like, while her husband sounds okay with it, Ben, that sounds like a lot of this is really on her mind and understanding, will she be okay as well, right? So I think with, what Katrina's talking about here is there's kind of three paths, right? And she's right. One, what if he can no longer work because of a health issue? Do they have enough saved to replace his current amount of income? The other thing to think about is, well, what if Katrina's husband were to pass away? Do they have enough, saved up, and will Katrina be okay? So even though, a person might think, okay, yes, I can, continue working, or I want to keep working, as long as I possibly can. I hear that a lot, right? For some, that is retirement, just going and working and just enjoying their day a little bit more without those financial worries of, can we make our money last? And so it's at the same time, it's still important, though, to sit down and have a plan in place to go, well, let's just make sure we're still protected in case any of the what ifs happen. And so I think it's important for them to just sit down and go, okay, in the event a health event happens, do we have enough saved up? Can we replace our income? In the event something happens to her husband, do we have enough saved up? Can we replace that income? It's a tough maybe mindset to change, but maybe Katrina can also, use some of her emotional concerns to, get her husband to sit down with someone. And then a lot of times too, maybe some of the questions from the advisor or from a advisor would help her husband see whether they're prepared or not, or whether they might need to take a deeper look at things as a just in case.
Very good. Hopefully that helps you, Katrina. Appreciate the question there. And if you have one for us, send it in via the website, lifemoneyshow.com, and you can call Scott if you want to talk with him directly at 847-235-6989. Let's wrap up this episode of Your Life, Your Money. Please subscribe to the show wherever it is you listen. You'll find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all the major platforms. And also, please subscribe to Scott's YouTube channel as well. You'll find the Retirement 360 Blueprint process there. Scott, thanks for the time today. Enjoy the trip, the golf trip, and look forward to hearing how it all goes.
Thanks, Ben. Look forward to talking about it.
Sierens Financial Group is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Sierens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Sierens Financial Group, Inc.